and welcome to you talking to me. Today we focus on the victory of Syriza at the Greek elections. The anti-austerity and left-wing party led by Alexis Tsipras nearly gained a majority at the Greek elections. So how will Tsipras manage to deal with its EU partners and creditors? That's the question we focus today. And to discuss this, my guest is a member of Syriza party and also a member of the United Left, the European United Left in the European Parliament, Kostas Chrysogonos. Kalimera.
Bonjour, and thanks for the invitation.
You're welcome. So, this is the first time an anti-austerity party will lead a government in the European Union. So, this is Syriza's victory represents the symbol of anti-austerity in the European Union. This is a big challenge. So, Mr. Chrysogonos, are you under pressure now?
Well, I expect that the new government of Greece, which is comprised of two anti-austerity parties, one left-wing, Syriza, which is the strongest party in the Greek parliament, and second, the ANEL, which is a rather conservative but anti-austerity party. This government will be under heavy pressure from the European institutions and from other member states of the Eurozone. That's obvious. But Europe has found its way through compromises, and it must find an acceptable compromise once more so that Greece can breathe. Because nowadays we cannot breathe. We are suffering from asphyxia. It's a social and economic situation which is really hopeless.
So the big question is whether Greece will pay its debt or not. So its debt has reached around 320 billion euros, and this represents more than 170% of its national domestic product, almost 3 times what is acceptable under EU rules. So your party is ready to negotiate this, but the Eurogroup chief, Mr. Dijsselbloem, said during the EU finance ministers reminded yesterday that there will be any restoration of the debt. So how will you manage this negotiations?
This is not a reasonable position. It's obvious that Greece cannot service its debt. This debt mountain is so heavy that it impedes Greek economy from recovering. It's, as you mentioned, 3 times as high as the Maastricht rule of 60% of GDP, a debt GDP ratio of 60%. Now in Greece we have almost an 180% debt GDP ratio. And as much as you would like to reform or transform Greek economy and society, it's not going to be able to service that debt. It's like trying to reform a donkey into a racing horse. It's not possible, whatever you may
So Mr. Tsipras has promised too much then.
The program, which has been undersigned by the previous Greek governments and the Troika, foresees that Greece should achieve for a very substantial number of years to come, primary surpluses in its budget, fiscal surpluses of around 5% of its GDP, and at the same time achieve a growth rate of 3 or 4% at least a year. This has not happened anywhere, and it cannot happen in Greece. The Greek economy was never so strong that it could achieve such goals. It was an utopia from the very beginning.
So now, Greece has to stick to reform and austerity anyway. Even if they want to negotiate with EU partners, even if there is a possibility of delaying some bailouts, that's the possibility. So, but are you ready to make some concessions? Syriza is ready to make some concessions.
Of course, in a table for negotiations, every side, both sides must make concessions. We have a program which we can negotiate. The other side has agreements which have been signed. which cannot be fulfilled. So both sides must make concessions that an acceptable compromise can be found. But if the point of departure for the creditors is that pacta sunt servanda, that everything that has been agreed upon must be accepted and respected, then there is no room for negotiation. There is no negotiation at all, because the Greek people have decided exactly that they can't fulfill their part of the contract. It's impossible, as I said.
Okay, we will come back onto this, but we will have Stavros Samuelidis from Sky Radio, our Greek journalist partner, who has a question to ask you from Greece, actually.
Hi, Letitia. Hi, Mr. Chrysogonos. So my question, you've already discussed a bit about that, but obviously everyone recognizes the win of Syriza as an opportunity in Greece, but also abroad for Europe to change. However, many also underline the big contradictions when Syriza says it's going to put an end to austerity and finish with the Troika, while continuing to receive at the same time money from the European Union and the IMF. And Syriza is also saying it's going to guarantee the country's path inside the Eurozone. So how would you comment on that? How are these contradictions can find a link between themselves?
We don't want any new loans from the European Union or the member states of the Eurozone or the IMF. Greece is now at a situation where it has a primary fiscal surplus in its budget. That means that before repaying debt repayment and interest, it can service its needs with its own means. So we are not a net burden for anybody. We also have a current account surplus. So the question is whether we can service the accumulated public debt as agreed or not. And the simple and clear answer is that we cannot. And austerity is not a means for achieving this goal. Austerity has put, as it was implemented, austerity put the Greek economy in a worse situation than it was before.
So let's have a look now at our reactions on Facebook. So Giorgio wrote that it's the end of austerity, or it will be the end of Europe. Will you understand that? And Andy, could the coalition, so he's asking a question about the coalition between Syriza and the Independent Greeks Party, which form a government, lead to closer links between the European United Left and the European Conservatives and Reformist Group at the European level. So this is an unexpected coalition from Syriza with the right-wing party, we have to mention it. So why are you expected behind this coalition?
Well, there are 7 political parties in the Greek parliament. 3 of them, which are in the minority, are essentially backing the Troika. They are pro-Troika forces, so to say. 4 of them are anti-Troika and anti-memorandum. The first is the Communist Party, which has ruled out from the very beginning any cooperation with Syriza, and which wants to exit the Eurozone and the European Union.
But there is also Potami, a pro-European country.
Potami is not only Potami is pro-memorandum. Potami wants to implement this austerity program further. It's not anti-austerity, it's not anti-memorandum.
So you wanted to have a coalition with an anti-austerity party.
Exactly. So,
and the only one is
There are 4
Greeks.
anti-austerity parties. One of them is the communists, who have ruled out any cooperation with us. The other is the Golden Dawn, the neo-Nazis, who are out of question anyway. And the 2 left are Syriza and the ANEL. The ANEL is a centrist movement, which is anti-austerity, but it has some more patriotic or nationalistic overtones. We don't agree in everything, of course, but we agree in as much as austerity must be ended and a renegotiation of the Greek public debt must be introduced.
Okay, then. But two anti-austerity parties in a coalition would be difficult to make some negotiation then afterwards with EU partners. It's going to be even more difficult if you don't have quite a really good balance between them.
Well, the fact is that austerity has not helped Europe overcome the crisis. The United States have followed another path towards growth and more jobs. And they have succeeded in overcoming the financial crisis as well. Here in Europe, we have a public debt for all member states of the Eurozone, which stood at 83% of their combined GDP at 2010, and it stands at 95% right now, far away from the Maastricht Treaty goal of 60%. So it doesn't pay off. Austerity and more austerity and more austerity. We must find another way.
Okay, we will see how this coalition will go on. But we have a last question from our Spanish partner from Castilla y León, Ruben.
Hi there from Spain. I want to ask if you think that will be an expansion of the Syriza model, not only in Spain or countries in the south of Europe. Do you think that we will have new politicians, young, charismatic, anti-establishment, as Pablo Iglesias, Podemos in Spain, across Europe?
Well, the critical point is not if they are young or old, the critical and charismatic or not. The critical point is that that politicians must ask for another policy across Europe, and this has to be a policy which is different from the policies implemented by traditional political forces, like the right-wing government in Spain and the right-wing government in Greece also, up to now, which are not paying off. We need new political parties which are not guilty for the sins committed in the past, and we need new policies. That's the critical point, and I think that Podemos in Spain is an ally for us. Podemos is a part of the European United Left, as you know, and I think that it would be a very significant development for Europe if Podemos could win the forthcoming Spanish election. Okay,
so thank you for coming. We will see how the other parties in Europe will be inspired by Syriza.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you for following us, and see you next time. Bye.